This is Untapped with M.E., and I am M.E., and you are?
I'm Jerry Poole.
He is.
A former court reporter.
Former. He's always driving about and filling in for people. He never really retired. But yes, he is a long-time Nacogdoches court reporter and my dear friend. And we've been having some fun doing interviews about murder and crime in Nacogdoches, part of a series that we're doing on a podcast called Untapped with M.E. I know you're watching it.
I'm watching it right now.
We're making it happen. Yes, yes. And as always, on Untapped with M.E., we do talk and drink. Jerry Good. Jerry, show them, though, what you're drinking.
Well, my usual Dr. Pepper Zero, and I actually have investments with Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper. So
Stop this.
No, I'm just kidding.
And I'm doing Sierra Nevada's Torpedo Extra IPA. It's not hazy. It's not juicy. I was in a big hurry to get to Jerry's house because, look, y'all, we are not on Zoom. We are not on Zoom, thank goodness.
No.
We were done with Zoom, so I drove over. This is Jerry's nice home, and so I grabbed this beer, and you know what? It's not bad. Let me just try it here.
Go ahead.
It's pretty good, Jerry. It's not terrible, as I like to say. It's not terrible. Okay. Woohoo, we are here today to do our bonus episode for Lost in the Night, the story of Donald Ellis Davis. And it's part of our series, as you know, for murder and crime in Nacogdoches, Texas. So, our special edition, because Jerry was there, y'all. You were there.
I was there.
I mean,
both times.
I mean, this thing started in 1983, and it just went on and on and on.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that, but I was looking at the box down at the courthouse with all the stuff in it, all the transcripts and documents, and at the bottom of every page since 1983, Jerry Poole.
Yeah, I got my name on a lot of those.
Okay. I want to ask you kind of a personal question, and it is, when the murder trial of Donald Davis was going on in 1985, what was happening in your life?
Well, we were on our way to our third kid. We actually had just moved to where our former house over on Briar Grove, and in January, when this trial was going on, we were expecting our third child in February. And lo and behold, I was in another murder trial of a lawyer's investigator from Lufkin was charged with murdering his wife. And during the trial, in the middle of it, your dad stopped the trial and said, "Hey, come up here, I need to talk to you." And so I went to the bench, and he said, "Your wife is about to have a baby. She's at the hospital." I said, "Oh gosh, what are we going to do?" But luckily we had somebody there who was a court reporter that was working with me, in a sense that she was trying to get some experience, waiting on her test results from the state.
So she wasn't certified yet?
She wasn't certified yet.
Okay.
But under the law, he was able to certify her, and I was able to leave. She finished the trial.
And she got certified and covered a murder trial.
Yes, she finished
as a new
it.
court reporter.
I did all the first section of it, and she finished the rest of it. So
oh wow,
that's pretty cool.
That's quite a thing.
So we had a baby.
Yeah.
The 25th of February, our youngest son.
Okay, so that's what was going on for you. But Donald Davis was being tried for murder of Ricky Lee Wilburn, which we have talked about the details of that in episodes 1, 2, and 3. So if y'all haven't heard it, they need to go back and listen so you can bring yourself up to speed. But to just kind of pick up from there, let's talk about how that trial was a little bit different from other murder trials. I mean, you've covered so many murder trials. What makes you think that one was different?
Well, this one was different because it was the one and only that I can recall in nearly 41 and a half years of reporting that court, that the defendant pleaded guilty by, or not guilty by reason of insanity. And that's a very difficult defense, but this one, it actually fit the case perfectly. And so that was the main difference, was the fact that the insanity plea, pled not guilty by reason of insanity.
Was that the only time you remember that being the verdict in a murder trial?
Oh yes, Yeah, that was the only not guilty by reason of insanity that I can recall ever in Nacogdoches County.
That's a tough one for the defense to win.
It is
I would
difficult.
think,
It
right?
is difficult. Yeah.
I think part of the fascination for me with this story is just what an incredible athlete and person, friend, popular, friendly to everybody Donald Davis was, and yet this terrible thing happened to him with the mental illness. So by the time you met him, of course, he was in a bad way, and I am curious as to how you might describe him when you met him, and how you would describe him as the years went by.
Well, I do recall the first time he came to court. He was not been sent to Rusk. He was still very mentally incapacitated at that time. So our first initial hearings probably was just an arraignment. I don't remember a lot, but I do know we had to have an incompetency hearing, and that was determine his competency to stand trial. So we brought him in. They brought him in. The sheriff did, and he was actually in Rusk Hospital. We had sent him to Rusk for an exam, and the hospital came back, and they brought him in a straitjacket, and he was so violent,
Goodness.
so violent. They said that he had so much adrenaline. He was a manic bipolar, and so his strength was increased like 10 times because of his mania. So they brought him back in a straitjacket, and had several deputies there in the courtroom, and the incompetency hearing was basically agreed to, but they had to have a jury, and at that time the law required a jury to make that finding. So Dr. Hunter from Rusk was the chief medical doctor there that certified that he was not able to assist his attorney in the preparation of his trial, and he suffered from a mental disorder, and he needed to be sent to Vernon. Actually, he went to Vernon.
Okay. Vernon State Hospital.
Vernon State Hospital. To regain his competency, and so we couldn't do anything until he became competent for trial.
Okay. Of course, though, what we want the viewers to understand is that you would see him, Donald Davis, every year for years and years and years.
Yeah, that was of course after the trial. After they found him competent, we brought him back for the actual trial, and we would spend. I know during the trial, he was he was on so much lithium and Thorazine. That's the medications they used on him. He was at the max limit, and he was pretty much sedated. It seemed like he was just very, very, mild. He was not extreme like he was before in his mannerisms, but he was able to assist his attorney, Tom Simp.
Okay.
But he definitely, you could tell a difference after he came back from Vernon. And then every year after they found him not insane, during the commission of the offense, he had to go to Rusk automatically. And he had to stay there, and we had to have a review. Every year, the doctors had to send a report on how he progressed in his sanity. And he would come back. And for the first few years, he would come back. He would sit in the courtroom, and he was still manic in his moods, and he would literally hex me and the judge.
Okay, what is that? What does
He would throw the hex at me, and he could look at his eyes, and he looked like the devil. I mean, he could pierce you with his eyes. It was just so. My wife was there even, and she said it was probably one of the most scariest defendants she's ever seen, and it was scary. He literally was scary looking. I mean, I've seen a lot of people, but I've never seen one like that. It was almost demonic. It was just really that bad.
Were y'all afraid? Was Dad afraid? Was
No.
law enforcement afraid for y'all?
No, I mean, he was. I always had somebody sitting behind him, and there was a deputy that he really liked, Deputy Bill Ball.
Bill Ball.
Bill had a way with him, and he trusted Bill, and Bill could handle him. And Bill would sit behind him, and I think another deputy during the trial. They were there, and we had a bailiff, of course. And I wasn't really afraid that he was going to do something. It was just his look in his eyes was just so fearful and so penetrating. It was unbelievable.
Wow. In that courtroom, I imagine that created a lot of drama, that which you just described. I'm wondering if there was any more kind of dramatic or emotional details that you recall, whether that be the attorneys or any other moment where you felt like, there's a lot of drama going on here, or emotion.
Well, of course, you had to be on your toes anytime he was in the courtroom.
Okay.
I mean, I've been in situations where there's been defendants that we've had notice of going to be attempted breakouts or something might happen.
Right.
And you're always on your toes for that stuff and looking, because you never know when something. I mean, we had the case where the guy literally stood up in the courtroom and stabbed himself, the defendant, while waiting on a jury verdict. Yeah, and you just never know when something like that's going to happen. I remember your dad telling me about a case that it was in Lufkin where the man's daughter was raped, and he was on trial. The defendant was on the stand, and he actually came around the rail into the part of the courtroom and actually took the knife to the guy when he was on the witness stand.
I remember hearing this.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got to be on your toes at all times for these kind of things, because you just never know when somebody is just going to flip out. I mean, it happens. I mean, we've had them throw chairs across. There was a juvenile one time threw a chair against the complaining witness across the courtroom, and just never know. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. I asked you, well, why did Dad keep appointing Tom P. Simpf to all these high-profile characters? You're talking about the kind of people, these defendants, that Dad would appoint Tom Simpf to represent.
Yeah.
And you had some commentary about why he always chose Tom.
Well, Tom Pruitt Simpf.
Yes.
Actually, Tom was a brilliant man. Tom, he was an undergrad at Duke University, and then he went to Harvard Law School. And after Tom graduated from Duke, the World War II came about, and Tom was I don't remember enlisted or drafted, but he joined the Army and was in the Army. He was a lieutenant, and Tom was one of Merle's marauders who actually were men, a whole platoon or a whole group of men who were dropped off in the Indonesia and the islands down there, and basically were told, you need to do this and you're probably not going to come back. But Tom was one of the few survivors of that group, and he was a great guy. He married a local girl, a Campbell girl. George Campbell was her brother, and her daddy was Dr. Campbell from Douglas, and very, very famous doctor here in Nacogdoches County. So Tom had also had a son that became a medical doctor, but Tom was a great lawyer, very smart, very intelligent. That's why Tom got appointed to these high-profile cases.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that Daddy felt like that he would know how to keep his defendant under control.
yeah, he could do that.
Which would be quite a challenge here when it's Donald Davis.
Yeah.
And I know that was difficult to keep him under control. What about the jury? Because here they are with all of this in front of them. What do you remember about this jury for the Donald Davis murder trial?
I really don't. Actually, I really don't remember much about the jury. I know that they had trouble during the verdict.
Yes.
I don't remember who was on the jury at all, but I do remember that it took a while to get a verdict, and probably because of the seriousness of the offense. that was committed because he did commit a very violent offense. So there was probably some people on there that just really had a hard time knowing probably that finding him not guilty by reason of insanity would send him not to prison.
Right, right. I did speak to a couple actually of the juror members. I remember one of them saying that it was really hard to see the family in the courtroom. We were talking a minute ago about Donald's father, Ed.
Right.
And you said you remembered him and you had some commentary about
Yeah.
that.
I remember his mom and dad. They, of course, Donald was adopted, and they were never missed a hearing at all. They came to every court hearing that was had. They lived here in town. They had a little business in town. I think it was an upholstery business, and they dearly loved Donald. And Donald was from my understanding, was a great person in high school, and they never missed a hearing. They were there always for him. And his sister came too. She was there for several hearings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, we were talking before this about Ricky Lee Wilburn, who was the deceased, and I still know little to nothing. You couldn't recall anything about him either.
Well, all I recall is I know he worked at a nursing home on the south side of town. I think it was owned by the Williams, but it was the offense occurred in Pioneer Park, right off of the Pioneer Park. And this young man would walk to work every day. He lived in that area, and he'd cut through Pioneer Park to go over to the nursing home. And he actually was on his way home at the time that it happened. But I do not recall the family at all. I'm sure they were present during the hearing, but most of the times I'm not aware of all that because I don't know who the people are. I know the courtrooms, a lot of times there's a lot of people in the trial that come, and I'm not aware of who they are.
Well, I guess you weren't. You were a little busy.
Yeah, I'm a little busy. Yeah, and I don't know what's going on.
We were talking earlier about the responsibility that you have of generating that transcript.
Right.
And so I'm not surprised that you didn't notice everything in the courtroom, although I will share with everybody out there that sometimes I would come into the courtroom because, again, I'm doing this podcast because I've just had such an interest in my dad's trials all these many years, not just trying to, be some murder podcast person.
Yep.
It was really always just wanting to share things about Dad.
Yep.
So I would come in, and I was just a girl, and there'd be Jerry, because that's what you did it then. You didn't talk into something.
No,
like you do.
Cinegraph machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I remember you coming in. I remember
Yeah.
I remember when y'all would sit on the front row, and your
Yeah.
dad would look over there, and I'd see him smile because he knew you were there, and
That's the only time he smiled during court.
he would take a break, and then y'all would go
Yep.
see him in the back
Yep.
in his office. Yeah, I remember.
But I'd come in, and there'd be Jerry, and he'd be very serious. Then he'd look over and see me and go,
Yep.
big
Yeah.
smile. So yeah, there were always a couple of smiles for us, but otherwise,
I usually kept an eye on that door on who came in and who left because you never know.
Yep.
Yeah.
As you were thinking back, I just don't want to miss out on anything that you're recalling as we talk that we don't get to with any of my questions. Is anything coming to mind right now?
No, not really. I know that Donald. Oh, I wanted to tell you about Donald. He did get released. He was in the hospital at Rusk after they found him not guilty by reason of insanity, and we had to have a hearing every year to recommit. And Dr. Hunter was always there and came and testified. But after Dr. Hunter left, they had a new doctor there, and for some reason the hospital was trying to get people out of their hospital system. And so he found that Donald Davis was no longer a threat, and said he was fine on his Thorazine and lithium, and he'd be all right in public. And so there was no controverting evidence by the state offered during that hearing. So Judge Pierce had no I guess he had to do what the law required him to do because he had to return him loose. And Donald Davis ended up at Palestine, and he was selling cars at a used car lot. And he got off his lithium. He thought he was doing fine. He didn't need the medication. He got off of his medication, and he went manic again, and so he decided to hitchhike, and he was going to Rusk, and he was hitchhiking, and a couple picked him up on Highway 84 going to Rusk from Palestine, and they quickly realized that they made a mistake.
Yes.
And they couldn't get rid of him quick enough. As soon as they got to Rusk, they let him out, and they were glad, and they went and reported it to the police department, and they came and rearrested him, and got him back in the system, and he stayed there until he died.
Yeah.
You know.
That was I knew a little bit about that, but I did not know that some couple had, you know, in an unsuspecting, Good Samaritan way, had picked him up, not realizing that honestly it would be a very dangerous situation, given what we know.
There's no telling what would have happened, if he had not been picked back up.
Right, but, that's true. That's right. Yeah.
But after that, the hospital finally changed their mind and decided to give a report every year that he was not going to be able to be released, that he would still continue to be a danger to himself or others, which is one of the criteria that they had to keep him there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is. It's quite a story. We've been wanting to talk about this for some time, but always when we come to sort of the end of our dialogue, I like to ask a little more personal question for me, because again, this all came about because, my daddy was the judge, and I just wanted to know, how was he different in 1985 when this trial was being had than maybe he was 1975 during the Palafox trial?
Your daddy never changed. He was the same. I mean, he was consistent. He never changed a bit. I mean, it was the same. I mean, he loved to try cases. I mean, but he just followed the law and just did what was right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. Just being consistent.
He was consistent.
Right? And yet I know that, he'd come home and he would just be so, you could tell, kind of heavy with it.
Yeah.
It really, and I don't think he did anything without feeling the gravity of it,
Right.
So I know he was very procedural in the courtroom, but I know at home he gave a lot of thought to these things. But yeah, well, 1985, that was a long time ago, Jerry.
37 years, 36 years, something like that.
Yeah, some time ago. 2023, and it's me, and it's Jerry, and once again, here we are wanting to share with you a little bit about our notes from a famous murder trial in Nacogdoches, Texas. So next time, Jerry, we're going to start a new story. If I can find my notes, I told you that my data got lost, but we're going to find it.
It's in the cloud. It's in the
cloud. I hope so. But if we can find it, then it's going to be the story of Willie Foster Sellers.
Okay, good.
You like that one?
Oh, I love it. It's a great story.
And that's not a murder story.
No, it's not. It's a bank robbery.
It's a bank robbery, but y'all, it is big. I mean, he was on the FBI's most wanted list.
Top 10 most wanted.
Top 10.
Yes.
Just a very interesting character, possibly part of what they call the Dixie Mafia.
Right.
And, they talked about him escaping the whole time that he was here, because that's what he did. He
escaped the federal system. He escaped there. And
time and time again. Yeah. Married to that woman they called Double D back then.
Yeah, from Mississippi.
Yeah. There's a lot. Yeah. It's going to be good. I promise you. So we're going to do that. Anyway, you'll be back for that interview?
Oh, definitely.
Then I would just say thank you, Jerry Poole. Shall we toast, Jerry, with your Dr. Pepper, because we did it.
All right. We did it.
Cheers, y'all. So you know what to do. Subscribe now and follow. Tap into Untapped with ME.